Hello, and welcome to The Renaissance Report, a freelance podcast series talking with educators and experts from everywhere on the need to improve climate, culture, and morale in K through 12 schools today, and how ideas from the Jostens Renaissance effort can help schools get there. Listen in as our guests discuss their experiences and ideas that have helped their schools achieve goals and just become places that people want to go to, not just have to go to. It's possible, and any school can achieve it. Our guest in this episode is Mark Brown. Mark is an educator and administrator from Newburg High School in Newburg, Oregon. He's also a Jostens Renaissance regional champion for the states of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho in the northwestern part of the U.S. We're going to talk about a lot of different related Renaissance subjects, but especially we're going to hone in on the subject of mental health. And you probably can't read anything about education these days without hearing about struggles with mental health, students and also adults. Mark is going to share a lot of great information along with his own personal story and the reason why mental health is very important to him. Well, first off, Mark, we really appreciate you taking the time to be on our Renaissance Report podcast. Thanks for the time today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and have a conversation about Renaissance, which I love and am obviously a big part of what I do as a professional. So yeah, excited.
You've done a lot of cool stuff out in Oregon. I'm from Pennsylvania in my particular case. So let's start with a little background there if we could, because we have a lot of things we want to cover here. First off, tell us something about yourself. Maybe, what do you do at your school? What do you teach? What is your background and experience and so on? Tell us about you.
Yeah, so again, Mark Brown, I am out here in Newburg, Oregon. So if you know where Oregon is or where Portland is, that's the biggest reference for most people. I am about halfway between Portland and the coast. So I'm about an hour from the beach. I'm right in the middle of the Willamette Valley, right in the middle of wine country. It's absolutely beautiful. I always tell people, if you haven't been to Oregon, you need to put it on your list. You won't be disappointed. We have a little bit of everything, and again, just beautiful location out here. But yeah, so I'm a high school administrator. I'm currently an assistant principal and an athletic director, and I've been at this high school for my entire teaching career. So I believe I'm going into year 13 or 14, but started as a basketball coach and as a health teacher, and then I did leadership and ran our student council for several years before moving into the assistant principal role. And now I'm assistant principal / athletic director. So my wife graduated from Newburg High School, so that's why we are here. This was about one of the only places she would let me apply for jobs. She wanted to live back here in her hometown. She is actually a third generation Newburg graduate. So our girls, my two daughters, as long as we stay here, which that's our plan, they will be fourth generation Newburg graduates. So kind of a fun fact about me, but also I think it's important. That's why I'm so dedicated and so passionate about my job here at Newburg. Is I have a little bit more skin in the game than just the fact that it gives me a paycheck, but this is our life and this is our community. So we love Newburg.
Well, I've never been to Oregon, so I don't know, bucket list. Cheese sticks in my mind. Something to
Tillamook, yeah, Tillamook cheese. I'm about an hour and a half from me. If you go Tillamook ice cream, which is the best ice cream you'll ever have, and then Tillamook cheese, a big factory out here. It's definitely a big tourist stop for a lot of people who are visiting.
I'm not sure about the ice cream thing. I'm from central Pennsylvania. I've got Penn State University in my backyard and the world famous Penn State Creamery. I don't know. We'll have to do a competition here.
I was going to say, I will happily engage in that competition. Absolutely.
Now, how long have you been involved with Renaissance type stuff? I mean, your entire career? Did you pick it up at some point? Give us some background on that, please.
Yeah, so I got to give credit to my Jostens rep at the time, Dan Peters. When I moved into the leadership role and doing ASB student council at my school, he invited me to one of the Renaissance tour stops. And that was about 8 years ago. And that was when Mike Smith and PC were going around and doing their big tour. And yeah, I went to that tour stop and was blown away and was just hungry for more and wanted to learn more. And so he helped pay my way to my first back then it was JRNC, the national conference, but now it's the JRGC global conference. So big thanks to Dan for getting me started, and yeah, the rest is history. So I've been going strong with Renaissance for about 8 years now.
All right, now can you remember, Mark, the time before you started doing all that stuff? What was your school like before? I'm assuming that's a reason that you went to the rally you mentioned and so on. Describe your school before and then maybe briefly now. Is there a big difference between those two?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have kind of a unique story here at Newburgh. When I first started teaching, we were in what are known as small schools. So we're a large 6A comprehensive high school. At the time, we had about 1,500 students. We're now about 1,200 students. So still a fairly good sized high school. But our Newburgh High School was split into four small schools, and we had blue school, silver school, green school, and red school. And so really what that means in short, kids were cohorted, right? And they were in a smaller group of about 400 students so that they had the same teachers, the same group of classmates, really trying to individualize the experience for kids. Well, that's a very expensive model of doing schools. And so we transitioned away from small schools back into just the large comprehensive high school. That was also the same year that I became the leadership teacher and was overseeing activities in student council. And so we were kind of in this weird space where we didn't really have an identity. We didn't know who we were as a school because red school had their identity and blue school, they were really passionate and strong about their things, and silver school and green. And so coming back together, we kind of needed to establish who are we as Newburgh High School. So we were kind of lost. And I think Dan Peters saw an opportunity with Renaissance to help expose me to it. And what it did was it gave me the resources and tools to do the work that I knew needed to be done, but I didn't know how to do it on my own. And so really that's what Renaissance did for us. And so the big difference, I guess, to your question between prior to Renaissance and after Renaissance is I'm still doing the same work. I'm still passionate about the same things. I just now have the resources and the community of like-minded educators that I get to share my experience with and that I get to learn from. And so I think that's really the best way to summarize kind of prior to and now using Renaissance, what it's done for us.
All right, now we're doing this interview on Zoom, so we're seeing each other, and I can see behind you that looks like a tiger.
Yes, we're the Tigers, Newburgh Tigers.
Guys are the Tigers, all right? And I know our friend John Jensen, who's
Yep.
primarily with our school mark effort, one of his favorite questions is, what does it mean to be and you're supposed to put your mascot in there. So for you guys, it would be, what does it mean to be a tiger? Now, have you answered that question? I mean, if you ask kids in your school, what does it mean to be a tiger? Would they have some kind of answer for you?
Yeah, I think the way that they would answer that is if I'm a Newburgh Tiger, that means I'm a member of Newburgh Nation, and that's how we kind of refer to ourselves. We are Newburgh Nation, and we've really used that as kind of this all-encompassing umbrella of, hey, if you're a football player and that's your thing, go be great at that. If you are a band student and you love playing the saxophone, go be great at that. If you're down in FFA, we have an amazing FFA program. Go be a rock star in FFA. If your goal is to get an honors diploma and you're trying to be a salutatorian or valedictorian, go be great at that. And I think what we do is whatever you're passionate about, wherever your interests lie, you have a place in Newburgh Nation, and we're all in this together, and we're all supporting one another, and we're one big happy family here. And so it's not just a bunch of individual Tigers, it's a bunch of individual Tigers who are all part of Newburgh Nation.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's a great description. Okay. Now, as we continue here, we're going to kind of concentrate on two particular things. You are one of what we call our Jostens Renaissance champions, which we have across the US and Canada. And that's you're essentially available to any school out there that is looking for, a little something extra. So we want to talk about that. But especially I want to talk about mental health because I've caught you at a number of Renaissance events, Mark, either in person or online. And I know this is a major topic for you.
Yes.
Let me start with this question because we're doing a series of interviews here, and I'm trying to ask this same question to everybody I talk to. And it's very simply, are kids really different today? I keep seeing stories and hearing from people that, yes, they are. Somehow in the last 5 years, somehow things have changed and kids are just different. So let me throw that question to you from your experience. Are kids just somehow different today, and why? Do you have any reasons for that?
Yeah, I chuckle a little bit when you ask that question. I love that question. I love getting asked that question. Because my answer is yes, kids are different because every kid is an individual. And so whether you're talking about from the year 1900 to the year 1926, whether you're talking about last year to this year, yes, kids are different because everyone is individual, and every single student in every individual student has their own story and their own experience. And so I think one of the challenges we face is, we all draw upon my experience as a kid. And well, why can't kids just have that same experience? Why isn't it the same for them? Why does it have to be different? Well, because for one, society is different, right? The times are different. The culture has changed and adapted. But most importantly, we're all individuals. And so our own individual story creates kind of our own individual experience, which means, yes, everyone is their own person. So everyone is a little bit different. And maybe that was a different take on your question, but I think that's, to me, that's one of the best ways to look at it is we're all individuals, so we all have a different experience, a different story.
Makes perfect sense. Times change, people change, things change. That makes perfect sense. Now, Mark, I've lost count on the number of stories I've read about kids and teens and mental health, and that teens today, maybe especially teens, but maybe I guess all age groups are just, there are mental health challenges that the pandemic made worse or the pandemic caused or various things like that. Now, from your experience with your school, working with students, and especially, I know this is a very hot topic for you. Why? Why are kids dealing seemingly with more mental health related issues now than, say, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago? What's the reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of research out there. There's a lot of statistics that show that obviously the mental health experiences and mental health challenges that students are facing is increased dramatically, right? And I think one of the big things that the COVID-19 pandemic, it created a lot of isolation. And we as human beings, we are hardwired for connection with other people. And when we were forced to be isolated and for the safety issue, making sure that we were all safe during that pandemic, especially in the unknowns of COVID-19 and all that, that was hard for people because they didn't have what they needed. They didn't have that direct connection to other people. And so I think that was one of the big challenges that has lasting effects. But then also during this time, students who are in their adolescent years, like those are some of the most important years where they're establishing their identity, where they're figuring out who they are, where they're learning how to navigate different emotions, where they are changing so rapidly and so quickly, their brains are changing so much. So to remove them and isolate them during that time, I think has had some lasting long-term impacts. On top of that, I think all of the technology out there is hard. Technology is an awesome thing. I'm using technology right now. I'm on social media. I don't think those are bad things. I just think that, especially with how much students are engaging in it, one, because that was their only way of connecting with the bigger world during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? They had access through social media, so they became reliant, dependent on it. They became addicted to it. I think that has caused some challenges because now one of the things we're talking about when we talk about mental health and the challenges people are facing, we're not just talking about these big illnesses and these big disorders, bipolar, eating disorders, manic depressive situations. That's not everything we're talking about. We're just talking about our interpersonal skills and being able to have a conversation, being able to connect and build relationships, meet new people, how to deal with challenges, how to problem solve, how to collaborate with others. Those are things that kids are struggling with because during some of their most important years of figuring out how to do that, they weren't able to because they were isolated. And so I think that has just compounded the challenges that kids naturally face with kind of growing and learning how to become people, right? We talk about social emotional learning, and really all that is what we're trying to do through SEL is we're trying to help kids become the best humans possible. And when they weren't able to have those experiences because of that isolation, we've seen the after effects of that. And then again, I think just all the media that we're getting, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to get political here, but I just think what we see in our nation and in our world of so much conflict. And if I disagree with you, that means I hate you. And that means my job is to actually destroy you and make sure you get, lowered and lessened in the view of everyone else in society. Just that overall mindset, I think, puts a lot of pressure on people. It makes us view other people as our enemy, as someone who is against me, and I've got to now protect myself. And so it's just created all these different emotions that I think it's just hard for kids to figure out. It's hard for them to learn how to navigate all those different feelings and emotions. And we're seeing the repercussions of that in terms of some mental health challenges that we haven't seen previously.
Mark, I tell you, I'm in complete agreement with that, especially with that last part. I mean, it's just society's, I don't know, crazy right now. Now, is this permanent? I mean, I've read some doom and gloom stories from some folks that like, oh, those kids lost a year of education and oh, they're falling behind and they're never going to catch up. That sounds really bad. I mean, what do you think on that? Is this somehow permanent to that particular age group of people and maybe anybody else who follows them?
Yeah, so in addition to being a school administrator, I also get to travel and speak quite a bit. And I speak obviously on the topic of mental health a lot of the times. And one of the things I joke about is one of my personal goals is to be out of business, to not be hired anymore to go speak about mental health because it's no longer an issue. That's my goal, right? Do I think that's going to happen? No. But here's kind of again, my twist or my spin on your question. Is this permanent? I don't our current experience, no. I think this is we're gonna move out of this, but something else is gonna come. And we don't know what that is. So for me, this conversation is a permanent conversation around the topic of mental health because we all have mental health, right? Mental health is real. You might not have challenges. You may not be facing a mental illness or challenges with your mental health, but you never know when something in life is going to come up and you are going to face a challenge. And so I think what we need to do is we need to make sure that the conversation around mental health is a permanent part moving forward of what we do in education and with students and with adults, with everyone, because since we all have mental health, at some point you may experience a challenge with your mental health or you may face something that you're not expecting. And so I would rather be people are prepared ahead of time and know what are some strategies, what are some techniques, are they actively managing their mental health and taking care of themselves so that they're prepared and equipped for when and if later in life something does happen that does challenge their mental health. So the conversation around mental health is not going away because we all have mental health. It's always going to be a part of our life. I do think the experiences, yeah, they're going to shift, they're going to change as culture changes, as society changes, as just times of life change. But mental health is always going to be something that we need to be aware of and being proactive about taking care of.
Now, Mark, if you don't mind sharing, I know this is personal for you because I caught you, I can't remember what the Renaissance event it was. It might have been online, like a few years ago. I can't remember where you kind of shared your own challenges when it came to the issue of mental health. Don't want to dig too deep, but you mind sharing a little bit about that? Because this is very personal for you. I know that.
Yeah. So my story, I've always struggled with body image, right? And for me at a young age, I was always very short. You can't tell because I'm on a video screen right now, or maybe you're just listening to the audio. I'm only about 5'5", so I'm on the smaller end for a full-grown adult male. But I struggled with that. And then as I got into upper elementary and middle school, I gained a lot of weight. And up and through high school, I was very overweight. And at my high school, if you were anyone, if you were, part of the popular or the in crowd, you were on the basketball team. We had a very successful basketball program. And at the end of my junior year, I knew there was no way I was going to make varsity my senior year because I couldn't keep up with the pace of the game. I had enough skill. I was not very good at basketball, but I had enough skill that I could keep up skill wise. I just couldn't keep up with the pace of the game, the speed of the game, because I was overweight. And so what I did is my mom has always said I'm very stubborn, one of the most stubborn people she's ever met. I made up my mind. I said, I'm going to make the varsity basketball team. And so what I did is I started to lose weight. I started to exercise. I started to cut out junk food. And what ended up happening is I saw success in losing weight and I made my high school basketball team. And what happened is that success actually turned into an addiction. And I have anorexia. And that was the start of my battle with anorexia and this constant desire to, for one, look good, because I didn't like getting made fun of when I was overweight, right? Because that happens to a lot of students. A lot of people experience body shaming. But then also I just became addicted to the success, and I found a way to get it. And that was to not eat and over exercise and keep myself really thin. And so that addiction just kind of took hold of me. And that started when I was 17 years old. It took me really until I was about 30 years old to really understand it and really come to grips with it and really start to proactively fight against it. And so it was about a 13-year battle where it had full control of my life. I'm at the point in my life where, yes, it's still a part of my life. I'm never going to be done with being anorexic. I'm never going to get to the point where, oh, that's gone, moving on to whatever's next. It's still always going to be a part of my life, unfortunately, but I'm learning how to manage it and how to not let it control me. And that comes through therapy, through having a counselor, through being open and vulnerable with the people I'm closest with. My wife is one of my biggest allies and advocates and helping to keep me grounded, hold me accountable, right? She's a good accountability partner and making sure that I'm making healthy decisions and that I'm not shying away from the times when I'm struggling. I think that's one of the biggest things when people experience challenges with their mental health. We try to avoid it. We try to, deny it, act like it's not there, distract ourselves. What I've come to learn is it's a part of my life, whether I like it or not, which I don't like it, but it's a part of my life. And so instead of, I can't avoid it, I can't act like it's not there. I've got to address it. I've got to deal with it. But there's certain ways to do that. And I can't do it by myself. So I've learned to lean into other people, use the strategies that I've learned. And I try to take it one day at a time and be the best version of myself today so that it doesn't control me, but so that I'm also not afraid of it.
Let me hone in on two words that you've already used earlier. The first word you mentioned was isolation. Now, while you were that 13-year period you were just talking about, I'm going to assume isolation was somehow involved with that. And I just think about kids in a lot of schools at lunchtime cafeteria, the kids sitting over there all by themselves. Nobody else wants to sit with them and so on. And I often think about boy, we got to do something about that. Was isolation a really big part of the struggles and things that you went through?
Yeah, I think in a couple of different ways, actually. Isolation, one, kind of self-isolation, right? I didn't want anyone to know what I was dealing with. By the time I was, 18, 19, I kind of knew that this probably wasn't right. This wasn't healthy, but I was so addicted to it that I didn't want to stop. And so I knew it wasn't right. And I tried to hide it. And so I kind of self-isolated. I self-isolated my problem, right? My anorexia, the choices I was making. And I did that by kind of, I kept relationships at a distance. And I didn't have a lot of really close friends because if people got close to me, they were going to be able to see and tell and know what I was dealing with. So I kind of isolated myself from people so that no one could see what I was dealing with. And then also I isolated kind of the real me by trying to chase different titles, right? I got promoted in my career really quick, really young, because I felt like, well, if people saw all the success I was having, they might ignore this other stuff, or they might not see where I'm not good enough, and they'll just focus on the things that, the titles or the success that I'm able to achieve. So it was kind of this weird way of isolating my true self because I didn't want people to see the real me. I wanted them to see a version of me that I thought that they would approve of, or that I thought that they would like. And so, yeah, but then when I got to my lowest point, I realized why I was so in such a dark place and why it was so hard is because I was alone. Because even my wife, who I knew loved me and I loved her, and I knew she was, no matter what, going to love me, I was so scared to tell her that I even avoided talking to her about it for so long. But I finally got to that place and I knew I couldn't do it on my own. And so my isolation was so loud, and it was so uncomfortable, and it was so just a place that I didn't want to be. It was so dark that I knew I had to reach out. And so I finally started, and I opened up to her, and then I started opening up to some other people. And now I share the story openly because I've learned that even though I'm not proud of it and it's not something that I like, it's part of my story. And I hope that I can be a positive example to someone else of, hey, we've all got a story. I'm just going to choose to not let my story have control over me. I'm going to start to be the narrator of my own story, and I'm going to start to move forward in a way that shows, hey, I'm dealing with this, but I'm going to choose to live my life in a way that doesn't have control. And the only way I've been able to do that is by connecting with other people who I know love me and are going to support me, who are going to hold me accountable, and who I know I can lean on those days that it's really hard.
We'll get back to more insights with our guest Mark Brown in just a moment. We mentioned two key words. Well, we sort of stopped in between. Isolation was the one key word we just covered. We'll do the second key word when we come back in just a moment. And amazingly, this is a word that a lot of schools really need to do a better job with. So stay tuned for that and more interesting insights from our guest Mark Brown coming up in just a moment. Now, let's say mental health is a real issue at your school. Students have been struggling for a number of years. Some teachers, what we call staffalty, sometimes they've been having their struggles as well for maybe different reasons. But either way, mental health is a major issue that perhaps we can say it is finally starting to get some attention at the educational level. So if that's your school, and it seems to be virtually every school out there, what to do? Well, we'll give some quick suggestions. First off, contact your Jostens Renaissance regional champion, somebody like Mark Brown. The entire country and Canada has assigned regional champions, and these are terrific educators, administrators, and experts from all over. And they have stepped up to essentially volunteer to be willing to help any school that reaches out to them to adopt some Jostens Renaissance precepts and also what can be done to improve mental health. Now, depending on where you're listening, watching, and so on, if you don't know who your regional champion might be, check out the website, jostensrenaissance.com. Do a little searching there for the North American map. Look for where you are and who your regional champion is. Then reach out to that person and get ready because they are going to reach out back to you, no matter where you might be, to see if they can help assist with your particular issues. And of course, while you're on the website, jostensrenaissance.com, absolutely check out a lot of the other features there. The idea exchange is fantastic. Lots of very simple, unproven ideas to help improve your climate, culture, and morale in your school. Pretty much that all adds up to better mental health, doesn't it? Check out the Idea Exchange for lots and lots of great ideas from schools, again, all over North America. Now, again, if you're a Jostens school, you work with yearbook or jewelry or graduate items and so on, make sure to ask your local Jostens representative for their special code, their Renaissance code. And then when you make your registry on the Renaissance website, enter their code. At that point, you have free reign over everything on the website. No fees, no charges, an amazing array of information, proven information that can help any school at any level, elementary to high school, all of them, pre-K even. Anything you need is available on the jostensrenaissance.com website. Now, maybe if you aren't a Jostens partner, number one, might want to think about it. Number two, reach out to your Jostens representative anyway. Contact them to say, hey, I've heard about this. I'd like to check out more. What is your code? They will share their code with you. And then once you register on the renaissance.com website, you will have 30 days of free reign over everything on the website. The Idea Exchange, the amazing video series, that's plural, available for students, also available for adults, great for professional development days and so on. Lots and lots of great information. So for any school out there, you have the opportunity to really give Jostens Renaissance a test drive and find out for yourself, yeah, this is the real thing. This is really, really good. All you got to do, reach out to your local Jostens representative, ask them for the Renaissance code. They'll share it with you. And then check it out and see what you can do, improving areas devoted to mental health. And right now, let's get more on that as we go back to our guest, Mark Brown.
All right, now a connected word, relationships, which is one of our Jostens Renaissance R words. We have 6 of them, but it's a big one. Now, Mark, you and I are Renaissance veterans, if you will.
Yep.
Is it true there are a lot of schools out there that just don't do a very good job when it comes to relationships, either kids and kids or kids and teachers or kids and administrators and so on? They don't see the need or they don't see the connection on why this is important? Or am I wrong there, that a lot of schools are fine with relationships? That's not what I'm seeing. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think at our core, most educators believe in the power of relationships. I think a lot of people maybe don't understand how to do that in the right way within the school setting, because there's a fine line, right? We've got to be careful. We're talking about educators and students, and so there's some boundaries that need to be in place. There's also a lot of expectations and mandates that are coming down from the state level or from the district level of, test scores, and you've got to get through this much of the curriculum. And so we get so focused in. Again, I talk about, oftentimes as educators, leaders, sometimes we get overwhelmed with just the obligations of our job, and we get narrowly honed in on just the discipline that we have to do as administrators, or the lesson plans that I have to get through as a teacher, or those meetings that I have to attend, those faculty meetings, whatever it may be. That if I just focus on those obligations, I forget to look at the opportunities. And relationships takes time, because relationships can be messy. Relationships, when you build relationships, you start to learn about people's stories. And sometimes that takes time to listen and to lean in and walk alongside someone who might be struggling. Or, it takes time to show up and go to those evening events, those basketball games, those soccer games, those theater shows that our kids are in. It takes time, but those are the most important things. Those are the things. I'm a big believer in Maslow before Bloom. And if we don't take care of our students' individual basic human needs, right? If we don't make sure that they have clothing, if we don't make sure that they have the food they need, if we don't make sure that they have good housing, if we don't make sure that they feel loved, they're not going to be able to learn. And so if we can take care of those basic needs first, the things that Maslow has helped us understand are part of the hierarchy of needs that we have to have in order to function as human beings, then we can engage in classroom. Then we can learn those math lessons. And so to me, yes, relationships is the most important component of what we do, because it then leads to education, and it leads to connecting kids to their learning, which then opens doors for beyond high school and whatever they want to do in their life.
All right, now we've talked about kids. What about adults? Yeah, staffalty is our fancy term, faculty and staff. That's a Renaissance term forever. Surely the adults are doing just fine, right? They're getting a paycheck, and all that sort of stuff. You're an administrator. You get to work with folks. Are the adults doing okay?
I'm the perfect example of no, we're not doing okay, right? We're a mess, just like the kids. You don't ever get to a certain point in life where it's like, okay, I'm done with those problems, never going to have to deal with that again. No, again, we all have mental health. And I think right now, especially educators, it's probably harder on them, because a lot of schools are kind of under attack. Schools have kind of become this battleground for a lot of the politics that are happening within our country and within our society. And so, what we're doing or not doing, people are blaming or are making attacks at educators. And I think that educators feel a lot of pressure. A lot of our schools are underfunded. And again, this is not going on a rant about, school funding and all this, but it's like, there's a lot of pressures on teachers, on staffalty, on educators right now. It's really hard. And so I think we need to be aware of the fact that as much as we focus on taking care of our kids, our educators, they need just as much support, and they need just as much focus and awareness around taking care of their mental health.
All right, now from your experience, Mark, Jostens Renaissance, ideas or initiatives that really deal with mental health or improve mental health. I don't know, an example or two, maybe that you've used or you've seen and so on, that schools could say, hey, we really need some help with that. That would be really great to try. Do you have anything like off top of your head, some things from Renaissance that really, really work?
Yeah, so if you go to the Idea Exchange on the Renaissance website, it's kind of like Pinterest for teachers, right? It has all these different ideas, thousands of ideas from schools all around North America who have, submitted ideas of what they've done and what they've seen works at their school. There's some sections in there, specifically some like pulled out items, some ideas talking about mental health and helping kids, ways to help kids practice taking care of their mental health or being aware of their mental health. One of the best things you can do is gratitude. Research shows us that one of the best things we can do for our individual mental and emotional health is practicing gratitude. So there's some strategies, some ideas on how to proactively practice gratitude, not just thinking, oh, what are you thankful for? Well, I'm thankful for this. Okay, now let's move on to math. No, some like tangible, actual activities you can do. So check out the Idea Exchange for some examples. Courageous conversations. This is a video series where I got to be a part of it. A lot of other awesome educators from the Renaissance community are a part of it, sharing our story and talking about how, hey, we're all in this together. We all have similar stories, maybe a little bit different, but we all have struggles. We all have issues, but here's how we can get through it. So some examples of people being vulnerable, sharing their story to help unite us and help us know that, hey, no one's alone. We're all in this together. And then obviously the harbor. I think that's one of the greatest Renaissance resources there is. And then I'm super excited. I haven't got to watch them yet, but the new wellness video series from John Paul Gonzalez, and checking that out here this next year with really these conversations for kids, how to have conversations around some of these topics like perseverance, grit, dealing with adversity. How do we do that? And how can we listen to some other students talk about their experience with it? So again, go to jostensrenaissance.com, and there's a ton of resources. Check out Courageous Conversations, check out the Harbor video series, and then check out the Idea Exchange for some of those very specific ideas to start to practice taking care of our mental health, practicing gratitude with students.
We'll mention again, jostensrenaissance.com is the website.
Yep.
If your school is a Jostens partner school, could be yearbooks, I don't know, class jewelry, graduate items, and so on, you have free reign over everything on that site. And folks,
say that again. It's free, 100% free if you're a Jostens school. Use it.
And there is so much stuff on there. I mean, curriculum, the whole 9 yards. It's amazing. If somehow you don't work with Jostens yet, hey, we'd love to talk to you. So we'll maybe leave that for another time. Now, Mark, you're an administrator, and granted, you're a veteran here. But if somebody wanted to start, if a school wanted to start doing Renaissance activities or something in that realm, how important is administrator support? In my 2 decades plus of doing this, I've seen a few situations where some teachers are like, hey, we'd like to start doing something, and administrator not really involved. And I just can't help but notice most of those just sort of fall apart. How important is getting support from an administrator or administration to get this successfully done and have really good results?
Administrator support is absolutely crucial to the success of Renaissance, because oftentimes the administrators, they become the gatekeepers, right, of what we do or what we're not allowed to do within our schools. And I think, I'm a big believer. I love Remember the Titans in the movie, and one of my favorite quotes is, attitude reflect leadership, Captain. And this idea that what the leaders are doing, the way the leaders are acting, the way the leaders are living, what they believe in, that's going to be reflected then in the people that they lead. And so if the administrators are not on board, Renaissance can happen, but it's not going to be nearly as successful. And really what we need to do as administrators is we need to become the yes person. We need to be the person to say yes to the crazy ideas. We need to be the person to bring the crazy ideas to the leadership team and say, hey, why don't we try this? And get them going, are you sure we can do that? Like, help get them excited, get them thinking big, dreaming big, even though you're not going to be able to do everything that you come up with, all the ideas you come up with. Be the person who's not afraid to dream, who's not afraid to think big. Because here's the thing, as an administrator, if you want your job to be easier, you will focus on school climate and culture. Because when you have a positive school climate and culture, staff are more excited to be there. And so they're showing up to work more often. They're willing to do the extra things that you need their help with because they love being at school. They love what we're doing at school. So sure, they'll volunteer some extra time. Student behaviors are going to start to change because when students love school, when students are positively connected to school, there's research that shows when you focus on school climate and culture, behaviors within the classroom get better. And so if you want your job as an administrator to be easier, one of the best things you can do is get on board with Jostens Renaissance, because Renaissance has all of the tools and the resources to help support you doing this work. And the cool thing is, when you do it right, when I as an administrator am leading Renaissance, I'm not the one doing the majority of the work. I'm just facilitating and I'm helping everyone else so that we collectively do this work together. It's not dependent on one or two people. It's best when it's shared amongst everyone in the school.
You got a team of people and they all want to get involved. So that's great. All right, let me take a chance here, Mark. You're an administrator, all right? I know from experience, administrators love proof. They love numbers and statistics and trends and all that sort of stuff. Off top of your head, from maybe several years ago when you folks were just sort of starting out, as you described earlier, to now, has there been a discernible difference with, that you can actually point to and numbers and so on at your particular school? What's the results been so far?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we have focused on is our staffalty and taking care of our staffalty, because we believe if we take care of our staffalty, they're going to be then prepared to take care of our students. And so we've put a lot of energy into that. And Newburg, if you know anything about Newburg School District, we've had some struggles the last couple of years with some different budget issues and some political stuff. Don't want to get into all that, but it's been hard. And so there's been a lot of people who have decided, a lot of staffalty and educators who have left Newburg, right? And so and I think that's a theme across the nation right now. It's hard to retain good teachers, and we're losing teachers all the time. We're losing educators. One of the things that we've seen here at Newburg High School is our retention rate has actually gone in the opposite direction. When nationally the retention rate for educators is going down, ours has gone up, and we're actually up about 10%, and we are higher than the state average in Oregon, even though we at Newburg have had one of the hardest, most difficult, most challenging last kind of 5-year stretches. Newburg High School, our retention rate continues to rise. And I think, or I know that that's credit to the work we've done through Jostens Renaissance in taking care of our staffalty and making sure they know our number one priority here is people. And we're going to take care of you so that you can take care of students.
Well, I'm from Pennsylvania, and as we're doing this interview, there are no substitute teachers. I mean, it's like none. They can't, schools are scrambling around still, and allegedly this is supposed to continue for a number of years.
Yep,
But
that's the
it sounds like
projection, unfortunately.
at your school, the opposite. So there's some proof right there that this works. All right,
Yep.
final question. All right, I'm going to assume we have some folks checking this out that they're at a school that's struggling and they're thinking, boy, this sounds really good. We should be doing something with this. We should get started. If you were getting started again, what to do? All right. So, we're going into a school year. If you were starting over again, what are some 1 or 2 or 3 things that you think this is what you need to start with to make sure you're going down the right road? What would you do?
I think the first thing I would suggest is reach out to the Renaissance community. That to me is one of the best things about Renaissance is the community of educators who are involved in it. And I've met some of my best friends, people who I call my best friend, who I can call or text anytime, any day, and I know they're going to pick up, and who we actually we talk all the time. Reach out to other people who are doing this work. That's one of the cool things. I'll briefly go off into kind of talking about. I'm one of the champions. So there's 13 Renaissance champions across North America, and we're all kind of regionally located. So I'm in the Northwest. So I'm Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. And then there's someone, the Sierra Nevada, Farah, she's down there with California, Nevada. Anyway, we're all over. Find people in your area, or reach out to me and I can start talking with you, or I can connect you to people in your area, in your region. But talk to other people. You don't have to invent anything. You don't have to come up with ideas on your own. All the ideas are out there. We beg, borrow, and steal. That's what we do in Renaissance. So number one, reach out. Talk to someone else. Reach out to me. I will help you, or I will connect you with someone who's maybe closer to you, and we'll get you started. And then more tangibly, specifically, think about, what does that first day of school look like, right? It's the summer right now. You might not be listening to this in the summertime. That's fine. But what is that first day of school? We've gone away. We tell kids, don't bring your backpack on the first day. And instead of kids coming in and getting the syllabus and all of their classes and all the rules about what not to do, we've totally changed it. And we have a party on day one. And with our ninth graders, I'm in high school, so ninth grade, we have a day that's just for them. And we have a pizza party where our Rotary helps sponsor a pizza party. Some years they've brought in ice cream. We do 2 different rallies that day where we have big rallies with music and games, and we make that first day of school so fun that they go home excited to come back on day 2. And then think about every single day, what are you doing to make school a place where kids want to be? And there's a lot of simple, fun ideas and strategies out there. But number one, reach out to others in the Renaissance community. We will help you. You don't have to do it on your own. And then number 2, think about, how do you start the school year? Because oftentimes we talk about, you only get one first impression. You only get one first day. Don't miss out on an opportunity to get kids excited and staffalty excited for the rest of the school year.
Now, very quickly, you're a Jostens champion, as we call it, and we have a whole bunch of these folks all over the U.S. and Canada, all dedicated, all fantastic. In your particular zone, I guess in the Northwest is where you are. I mean, if a school contacted you like, Mark, can you come over here? Can you help us in some way? Is that something that champions do, that schools can reach out to say, hey, we really need some help. Can you come over and help us? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we are here for. We are here to be a direct resource for you. I've gone out and done some school visits. Now, sometimes, I'm down in Oregon. If someone way up in, Northeast Washington, 6, 7 hours away, that can be hard. But if we can make it work, we will definitely make it work. But that's one of the cool things with technology, right? We can jump on a Zoom meeting. So I'm happy to jump on a Zoom meeting with schools. And then one of the biggest things I do is I like to connect schools with their Jostens rep. I like to make sure they know who is their contact, who is their person who can help get them access to the website. I can get you access to the website. How do they, ask questions? How do we start to do this work together? And then one of my jobs as a champion is to kind of be that ongoing coach or ongoing resource to, again, hey, every month, let's jump on a Zoom meeting, or you have that question, text me. I'll shoot you some resources. I'll send you, point you where to go on the website. Or, hey, I know this educator at this school, they've done a really good job with that. So let me connect you with them. And to really be a facilitator and a connector so that you, as a new school starting out with Renaissance, don't ever feel like you're on your own and you've always got someone you can, if I don't have the answer, I'm going to help get the answer for you or connect you with the person who's going to be best able to support you.
Mark, that is fabulous. That is great. I really appreciate this entire conversation. I think some really good background and advice. And obviously, thank you for what you do as a champion. You don't have to do this, but you choose, you want to. And I know there's a lot of schools, I'm sure, in the Northwest part of the country that are very appreciative of the efforts that you do, and hope you keep on doing it. So thank you very much for the time today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and thanks for the conversation, and thanks for what you're doing as a Jostens rep. I really think I want to just close on this. I think one of the biggest resources we have and that we need to be utilizing more are our Jostens reps. And I think the more we can partner school and Jostens reps, I think it's going to make the reps, it's going to make your job a lot easier. It's going to help your business, but more importantly, it's going to help our schools. And I think if we can do a better job of continuing to build those strong connections, those relationships, school to reps, I mean, Renaissance will do the rest of the work, and we're only going to see success because of that.
We're here and we're ready to go. That sounds great. Mark, thanks again.
A great big thank you to our guest Mark Brown for joining us here in this episode. We hope you got some great ideas and inspiration, and be sure to listen to the rest of our Renaissance Report series for even more insights on education today and how to improve school climate, culture, and morale so that everybody wins, students and adults. Thanks for listening. See you next time.